The government cannot solve a pervasive problem purely by legislation.
But governmental action can make and has made things worse.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you. We are very happy you've joined us for today's program. We're looking forward to this discussion. As we do at the Town Hall, we cover a variety of topics, and this is the one for today. You've heard the opening statements by a couple of our panelists, but I'd like for you to meet them all, and we'll begin with the gentleman to my right.
I'm Bishop Michael Olson, and I am the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
My name is Canon John Peterson. I am an Episcopal priest, and I'm canonically resident in the Diocese of Washington, D.C.
I'm Tom Plumley. I'm the senior minister at First Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas. Our congregation is a part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ.
My name is Mel Robeck. I'm an ordained minister with the Assemblies of God, and I'm senior professor of church history and ecumenics and special assistant to the president for ecumenical relations at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California.
Hi, I'm Carl Trovall, the Richard J. Dinda Professor of Lutheran Identity and Mission at Concordia University in Austin, Texas, which is affiliated with the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
I'm Andrea Luxton. I'm president of Andrews University in Berrien Springs, Michigan, which is affiliated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Well, as you can see, we have a great panel assembled here today, and I want to thank each one of you for taking the time to be here with us. We know that you're very busy in your regular duties and responsibilities, so thank you for being here today for this important discussion. In November of 2018, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos announced new regulations on how colleges and universities should handle accusations of sexual assault on their campuses. Women's rights groups and victims' advocates are crying foul. Men's rights organizations are applauding the move. The changes DeVos is championing are meant to guard men from unfair and fraudulent accusations. One of the biggest changes mandates that the accused must be given the right to cross-examine the accuser by using a third party, usually an attorney, during the school's investigation of the charge. A second important change is in the definition of what constitutes sexual assault. The old regulations define sexual assault as unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature. DeVos narrows that definition to unwelcomed conduct on the basis of sex that is so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive that it denies a person access to the school's education program or activity, close quote. All of this follows on the heels of President Trump's statements during last fall's midterm election campaigning that it is a scary time for young men where you're guilty until proven innocent. I'd like for our panelists to consider at least three questions today concerning this subject. First, just how prevalent is the problem of false accusations of sexual harassment or assault? The second question, what does your faith community do to help guide young adults regarding appropriate sexual behavior on college campuses and university campuses? And the third question, given the new guidelines, are men and women who are victims of assaults on campus more likely to report abuse or less likely? That is our subject for today. You've already heard from two of our members who made opening statements. Let's go back to them now. We want to hear a little more on their thoughts. And so, Dr. Luxton, back to you, and thank you so much for being with us today. More thoughts on the subject, please.
I'd like to go back a little. First of all, yes, sexual assault is a huge problem in the United States, on college and university campuses and beyond. There's absolutely no question about that. It is not surprising that the government, first of all, under President Obama, started bringing in guidelines and expectations of universities. That is totally understandable. In doing so, however, what happened in reality was that a huge legislative structure started developing on campuses to deal with this. Because right from the very beginning, the processes were so highly technical and legislative in nature that it forced universities and colleges to act in a way that was different from what happened outside. Evidence of proof was at a much lower level. So things were challenging, I think, for all campuses. Being on a campus, I'm not convinced that it resulted in more resolutions or more people reporting. I think it just raised the level of expectation of how a university should respond. The new guidelines, I think, try to make some adjustments. Some I think are good adjustments, some I think are problematic adjustments. I think some of the good adjustments are the narrowing of the definition. I think that's probably something that is good. I think something that is bad is this cross-examination, which really does almost begin to need attorneys in the process, which again is additionally expensive and problematic for universities to manage. I do think the new guidelines will prevent serious cases being reported. I do think that is a potential problem in it. But I want to go beyond that. My issue is we're spending a whole lot of time, energy, bantering to and fro, changing in legislation. But is it having the right impact? And I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure that it is lessening the issues that campuses have. What is my suggestion? I really think that universities and colleges, plus other organizations, need to be very responsible in this issue. I think education is huge. I would like to see a reporting mechanism that is part of accreditation that requires reporting on how do we manage education in this area, what are our processes in this area to ensure that resolution is found and that fair treatment is given to all parties. That is the way I would go. But I would move away from this attempt to tell and micromanage how universities and colleges must deal with it, because I just don't think it's effective.
All right, thank you very much. And now to Reverend Plumley. You also began with an opening statement. Your further thoughts on this subject, please.
Yes, thank you. I would agree with virtually everything that Dr. Luxton said. I do think that it is alarming that the greater openness that began to be built on college campuses, by which those who are victims of assaults can report in an atmosphere that is more safe and more willing to believe them, that has now been blunted, and she laid out a couple of the ways that has taken place with this introduction of attorneys for the accused and so forth. I don't want us to do anything that plays into this misconception that accusers are not to be listened to, or that accusers are somehow making things up, they're not to be believed, or that they're somehow at fault. And all of those things are a part of the cultural baggage that we bring to this whole thing. I appreciate one of the questions that you asked, Mr. Moderator, where you asked us to talk about what our religious traditions are doing. I think I've mentioned it before on other programs, that one of the great educational things that we have for disciples is a program that's available to other denominations as well, called Just Say No, and no is spelled K-N-O-W, where we begin to teach kids in a church camp setting more about sexuality, and it's done in a way that increases the respect factor that kids, when they know more of the facts, then they are able to react and to treat each other in a way that is more respectful and less of the locker room sort of behavior that we so often see, and just for our church in particular, our congregation just during 2018 held a major conference for our entire city, talking about how we can change, what things need to be changed, so that this vast number of women who began to report through the hashtag #MeToo movement, so that those numbers decrease, and so that we do something on college campuses, on high school campuses, in business, and in all settings, in churches as well, to reduce the number of people who will ever have to say that this is something that's happened to them.
All right, thank you very much. Let's come over to Canon Peterson. Your thoughts on the subject, please.
Well, I think, number one, this is a political football. And the new guidelines are being received very differently from men and from women. And it issues the whole issue, the whole problem that we have here is that indeed sexual assault on campuses, as well as in businesses, as well in the church, is real. And how do we best do it? I suspect the part that was most disturbing to me, and here I want to first disavow any authority to be able to speak. We must listen to Andrea and Carol, because they're the ones who are in the university settings dealing with this, as well as in the church. Clergy certainly have a responsibility here as well. But I think that the issue of cross-examination and is really a very serious issue in this, because in the first place, the lawyers that will be hired, will certainly tip the scale in relationship to the whole topic being discussed. And Title IX, yes, certainly has issues that are important that we have to look at, but I do not think that necessarily this new proposal is going to remedy any of those problems.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Trovol. You were mentioned too, by the way, and you are on a campus, and as some others are as well, Dr. Robeck as well. But your take on the subject, please.
I think there's a lot to criticize about this, and it's been highlighted in the moderator's comments. But if any of you have the ability to go back and DVR or TiVo and go back to listen to what Andrea had to say, I think she encapsulated marvelously the tension that universities are, and Christian universities like our own as well, as we struggle to not only abide by the law, but also to bring people together in such a way that people learn from what's happened to do it in such a way that they have an ability to change and to live differently. I'm talking about forgiveness and repentance, and that's one aspect. But a couple of things. There is a pervasive history of blaming the victim, and that's what I appreciated about the Obama regulations, that the victim has been blamed so often in so many of these cases, and that's why I think to highlight the victim is important. But here's what the tricky thing is that someone can make an accusation, and then the person who's accused is the victim. And that's why I appreciate the balance that this new proposal put in. That is, before any accused student was denied access to any of the evidence, any of the identities, any of the witnesses, any of the information. So you had someone who's accused, and you have no idea what you're even being accused of, to clarify. And so this brings, I think, some balance, this new proposal. The issue I have a problem with, and by the way, when I talk to my students in the class privately, especially the female students, if they've ever experienced any kind of untoward behavior, I mean, almost every one of them agree that they've experienced that in some way. And that's really kind of frightening. So the issue is there. But the one thing I wanted to touch on here was this definition is so restrictive. Yes. Unwelcome conduct on the basis of sex that is so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive. I mean, what about one person who makes one joke, which to me is problematic? It's not pervasive. Or rape. A rape isn't pervasive. It's a one-time event. To me, this definition is just way too restrictive. I think the other regulation was it's too open, and so we still need to work at it.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Robick, you're also on a campus, or have been on a campus for a number of years.
Yeah, not only is it a Christian campus, it's a campus training pastors. And they're not immune from this kind of thing. You know, I worked in student life as head student life for about 10 years at Fuller, and I have to say, and I'm not proud of it, that we had issues on campus that I had to deal with that developed around this. I like Carl, and Andrea, I do think this is micromanaging something that is maybe not as big on Christian campuses as it is in secular universities. It's a real issue, no matter what and no matter where. And I have really been frustrated by the judicial system in allowing young men to go free, basically, with a slap on the hand for something pretty horrendous that women have gone through. I am therefore thankful for the Me Too movement and for the issues that they have raised. I'm always interested in the fact that, I mean, I live close to Hollywood, right? So I watch what's going on there, and I have to say, that's not normal. We've all heard stories about the casting couch and all that kind of stuff going back into the 40s, it's just crazy. But I think the bigger problem is that we don't ever deal with the root issues, namely that in the U.S., our culture does not have an adequate understanding of sexuality in any way, shape, or form. And as a Christian, as a minister of the gospel, I have to say the Bible is full of illustrations and stories about how these things have gone wrong in the past, and we never learn because we don't read it. And we don't believe those rules apply to us. I mean, they're kind of, they're suggestions maybe on a good day, but they're not rules to be obeyed, like faithfulness in marriage and so forth. But the reality is, it seems to me, that women are grievously exploited in so many ways, and we allow it, and Hollywood produces it all over the place. I was on the plane yesterday, tried to watch a movie yesterday. I had to turn it off because it was just too exploitive of the woman that was there. It was gratuitous. It didn't need to be there. So if they're going to holler about directors and producers in Hollywood, we're teaching our kids. They see these movies, they see television, they see the clothing, they see the ads, they see the fun, they see the good. It feels good. I think we're stuck. But I do agree that the original position was too soft on men. This one, I think, is too hard on women.
All right, thank you. Now, Bishop Olson, your thoughts on the subject.
Yes, I think, first of all, rape is a crime. And if a crime is being alleged, you call criminal authorities. And any investigation that the criminal authorities are going to do has to take precedence before any institutional investigation. So as the institutional investigation doesn't somehow foul up the criminal investigation, which has a greater need for the common good and the integrity of the people involved. Secondly, I think there has to be a balance. The primary right of someone not to be assaulted, not to be attacked or threatened even, and then also the right to a good name, not to be maligned. And I think the involvement of criminal authorities helps us to do that because they're experienced in that. There's also a sense of transparency with responsibilities on the part of everyone. As far as what I think the church does, at least ours is attempting to do, is with transparency also comes respect. We forget sometimes that sex is really designed for marriage. And a lot of these issues, especially those that are overlap issues of confusion of interpretation, I'm not talking about a direct assault, which is an act of violence, of course, but even sexual promiscuity, carries with it great consequences for which we're accountable. All right, and I think we forget that, and we end up trying to deal on an ad hoc basis with these things after the fact instead of doing preventive things like respect, the importance of chastity, the importance of integrity of life, things like being a gentleman, things like being a lady. The other thing that's overlooked, at least by secular society, is also this sort of stuff that happens on a same-sex basis, that is trumpeted in a parade one day, and then is also going on, though, in the closets and in the back streets, and is people are afraid to talk about.
All right, thank you. So sorry we're out of time for this segment. We do have some summation statements coming up in just a few moments, but stand by for this important message.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you very much. I do look forward to hearing from you. And by the way, if you go to the website, you will find there archive programs of past town hall sessions like we're having here today. I'd encourage you there to go and look at some of those. And then also send us a note, as Mark has suggested. We do look forward to hearing your suggestions for future programs, topics, and if you have other comments, we welcome those as well. Now let's go to our summation statements, and for that we return to Bishop Olson. You're first.
Rape is a crime, and it's primarily an act of violence, secondarily an act of sexuality, an aberrant act of sexuality. We need to promote a society that respects the integrity of people not to be assaulted. Likewise, that due process needs to respect the integrity of someone's good name should they be falsely accused of such a grave injustice and crime. Sexuality is designed towards marriage and family life. And the more we foster a culture that begins with respect between men and women, and among men and among women, the better we are and healthier we are as a society.
Thank you very much. And now, Reverend Plumley, your summation, please.
Thank you. I think the conversation that we've had as it touches governmental regulations, rules, and procedures that are prescribed or proscribed relative to the college experience, to college institutions, and to college students. I think we're seeing that the pendulum is beginning to swing, but that swing itself is a good thing. Whether it's swung too far to the left, too far to the right, too far forward, too far backward is not the primary thing. The primary thing is that we need to begin a conversation. We need to be part of conversation. We can no longer go with generation upon generation of folks who never have their religious institution say anything to them at all about this important part of human life, that is sexuality.
All right, thank you. Dr. Trovall, your summation, please.
Well, to follow up on that, I want to say one positive result of either the first or the second proposal of legislation, and that is we are having a very open discussion on campus among the faculty about what this means for us and what happens when students come to your office and say something to you, and when you're not a professional counselor but an educator. And it also, we talk to the students about this in their freshman year and when they enter the university, the same thing. So this has raised tremendous amount of awareness and discussion, which gives us opportunity to talk about the meaning of sexuality, the meaning of respect, all of these things. So
thank you, Dr. Trovall. Dr. Luxton, your summation, please.
I think one of the reasons the government has pushed so hard on this is that there is a different, in the law, in the criminal system, they go by predominance of evidence. In a university, they ask us to go with more likely than not, which is a lower form of evidence. And so sometimes the law cannot do anything, but the universities are expected to do something. So I think that's one of the reasons that this has hit university campuses. But I would agree with what Mel said and what Carl has just said, that really, at base, this has got to focus us on the change of culture, a change of thinking, and the education that happens. And I think the good thing that has come out of all this legislation, I agree, is that we are focusing on it, we are dealing with real issues, talking about it. That part is good.
Thank you very much. Dr. Robeck, your summation?
Yeah, I think sex and sexuality are one of the greatest gifts that God has given to humankind. There's no question about it. It supports the development of love and of intimacy. It builds trust, and ultimately it can bring life into being. So I think those are all good things. But the problem with our society is that it doesn't really take much of that seriously. It's about doing whatever feels good or whatever they want, without anybody imposing any kinds of rules or regulations on them. Second thing I'd like to say is that that I think governments and attorneys in particular have turned colleges, universities, seminaries, and so forth into the parents of children that should have been taught differently when they were growing up.
Thank you.
So we end up with a problem.
Thank you for that. Now, Kenneth Peterson, Tempest Fugit.
Yes, I would say I am a father of 2 daughters, and I must say that I appreciate the /Me Too movement, because it has brought out and made aware the situation, the critical situation that we're facing today in today's society.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you to each of the panelists here today for joining in this conversation. This is a timely subject. I think you've approached it very carefully, very wisely, and we hope that you as viewers have appreciated what has happened here today. If you have questions about this, or if you're on a campus, I would encourage you to talk with your campus advisor. If you're on a religious campus, talk with a chaplain, talk with a counselor. And if you have questions regarding what we've said here today, be sure to write us a letter. We can do a future program on this as well. If there's something that you see that we might have missed here today, we're open to those kinds of suggestions. But I do want to thank you if you're tuning in for the very first time, because we know we get new viewers all the time. And before we close, I just want to say we hope you enjoyed the experience, and please come back next time. But for now, the Charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And so now, friends, until next week at the same time and over this very same channel, or however you've tuned in, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.